Okay, so hi Mark, and thank you very much for spending some time with me today. Would you like to give my listeners a little update as to who you are and how you got to where you are now?
Certainly. Thanks, Lisa, and I appreciate you reaching out. So my name is Mark Riggio. I've been in the maritime industry and working for a long time now, coming up on 30 years in the industry. And really sort of how I came to the point where we met. I was heading down a path. I was the product manager for a ballast water treatment company, doing kind of a big emerging industry and working in that job. And what I really found was that I was really fighting against a lot of situations and challenges in my workplace that I wasn't super comfortable with, and it really wasn't necessarily that anything was wrong. It just was really uncomfortable, and I was really using a lot of energy that really wasn't productive, and just sort of a lot of different people around me. You seem sad, or you seem really off, or you're not yourself, that sort of thing. And I pride myself on trying to be a fairly standard person. Like what you see is what you get, whether I'm at work or at home or in church or whatever. It's a sort of am a normal person. And so that bled over into other parts of my life. And I really took a period, and honestly, the COVID sort of helped that as well, to sort of take a break and really did an assessment of where I was and where I was going. And that caused me to kind of say, I need to change. And whether I needed to change jobs, or whether I needed to change careers, or whether I just needed to make a significant change of self, I really needed to make that change. And so I embarked upon a program where I was looking at some different opportunities, and really realized that the problem had been that I had allowed myself to go down a path, and I was pretty far down that. And so I challenged myself to reset, to kind of push the reset button and say, okay, let's retrench back to when I last was happy. I guess maybe is certainly that's what I told myself. And my wife and I had moved about 9 years ago from Pittsburgh to from Charleston, South Carolina, to Pittsburgh. And that move really marked a change in our family. And so I really went back to that time, and I said, okay, what were the things about that time that made me happier, that made me more comfortable, that made me a better person to be around? And I started to reintroduce those things. Started to reintroduce, what I was feeding myself, both from a sound. I like to listen to a lot of music. How I was eating, how I was, just the inputs, what I was reading, those sort of things, all sort of in the background, tried to rebuild that person. And then that helped me then make a business decision about my job. And I realized that the job what I was doing really wasn't what I intended it to be when I moved. And so when we took this job and we came here, a lot of that noise that came with that job really created problems. And so then I was able to assess the opportunities that were in front of me, and create an opportunity that was a lot better, and know when the right opportunity was there, to be able to make a change and make a move, and hopefully this time stay much more focused into what I want it to be, and who I am, and who I really want to be. So long answer to a short question, but
Yes, but summed it up brilliantly. I wanted to ask you a little bit more detail about like how you noticed the points where you said you already mentioned a little bit about the other people's feedback, that you were not yourself and you could feel that you weren't yourself. Was it a long period of time before you decided the reset button was needed, and you said
yeah,
COVID had helped that?
it really was a long period. And certainly I would say honestly that the process took me about 3 years, to really, from the moment that I kind of went, this isn't right. Like there's just something that's not. I'm not where I'm at. I'm not where I want to be, and I'm not who I want to be. And um, doing it on my own, it was challenging, and trying to, and really would have been impossible. And so there was a lot of steps that got me through the process. But the biggest thing for me, I think, was when I realized that I was very short with people, and that wasn't something that I prided myself on being open-minded and being uh, understanding, and being calm. And yet I often found myself, not only found myself being short, but I found that people would comment to me, "Oh man, you were on fire in that meeting," or, "Well, who got in, who cut you off in traffic this morning," or whatever. It's like, well, nobody. I'm just, I'm frustrated because we're not doing things. I'm frustrated because I'm not able to be effective. And I went through a long process of trying to assess where it was the sources of that ineffectiveness, and what were the sources of that angst and anger that was there. So yeah, there was a lot of different individual feedbacks, and it was actually funny to me. One of the real sort of watershed moments for me, and I was just talking with somebody the other day about this, was actually when I started writing my blog. I used to do a lot of work on LinkedIn. I would put articles and stuff up, and I was going to do a tongue-in-cheek article about being addicted to success. And so I kind of put this, I got the 12 steps from Alcoholics Anonymous, and I put it up there, and I was writing this real tongue-in-cheek, commentary on life and myself. And I got to like step 6, and there was this kind of a chill that came over me. And when I got to the end, I went, I'm not so sure this is tongue-in-cheek anymore. I kind of think maybe I'm addicted to success, and maybe that's a piece of what's here. And so, I sat back and I went, and that really caused me to really to take stock, and kind of, that was my turn moment towards a place. And I used that blog to work through a lot of different things and to put a lot of different things out there. And I realized it wasn't something that I wanted to be related to my business or to my work. So I took it off LinkedIn, and then started this blog. And that's, really, and so this sort of is the culmination of that effort, sort of the end of that, the end of that arc, or maybe not the end of the arc, but certainly a second place on that arc.
Sure. So you've been using your blog as therapy almost as well.
Yeah.
You work through it.
Yeah, it's a lot of people who read my blog think, yeah, Mark, this is just your personal therapy.
It's a great way to do it though, because a lot of people relate to it. The pressing the reset button for me was the one that somebody had shared with me, and I thought, wow, this is just perfect for, a lot of people need to hear it. You don't have to be afraid of actually saying, no, I've had enough now, or I need to change track, and you don't often realize yourself until you start listening to what other people are saying, and actually thinking, is that real? Is it how I'm really behaving, or is it just their impression? But the more it happens at work, and maybe even at home, other areas, then you do start to think, oh, actually, yes, I do have to accept this, or I have to realize that maybe that behavior is not quite the same.
Yeah.
So you said that COVID had helped you come through this as well.
Yeah, the bringing myself out of the work environment. So it was, so when COVID hit, like many people, we all got thrown out of work and sent home. And the room that you see here didn't exist when COVID hit. This was an office space, and I'm very blessed to have a really quite a nice home with a lot of good areas. And so this room was where my wife had her desk and had her things, and she also was thrown out. And so this room, and my children this was where their computer was. So this room was off limits. And so I was forced to go downstairs to the basement. And about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I converted one room to a music studio. And so I went down to the music studio room, and I created a standing desk out of a cabinet. And it was kind of nice because I had all my music, I had my guitars, I had, all my stuff, and I went sort of to my happy place. And I spent like the first 4 or 5 months of COVID sort of locked in my happy place working. And it was very therapeutic to just sort of be like, this is what I like this is who I am. And I have a big Dark Side of the Moon mural behind me, and so when I get on a call, everybody be like, oh, that's cool. And it was just like reconnecting, forcing myself back into a reconnected spot, and it was very therapeutic. Turn the camera off, turn the microphone off, and then just sit and play guitar while I was on a meeting or something, and just be like, yeah, this is who I am. And it was, and as I was reintroducing those things, other people, and even in work, were like, wow, you're just more chill. Like, you're more like, you're liking this COVID thing, aren't you? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I don't have to be in the meetings. And yeah, it's a lot better to sit in a meeting when I'm strumming away and, playing a guitar, or I have Pink Floyd going softly in the background, and this isn't bad. and it helped to allow me to create some thought experiments. Okay, if I do this, does this make me better? What if I don't answer that email for a day? What's really going to happen? I had bad internet, I missed that meeting. The world went on without me. Okay.
Yeah.
That's, so it really gave me a little bit of time to do some thought experiments and really to accelerate, because it's the hardest thing that you're ever going to do, is especially for someone like me, and maybe a lot of people you encounter, when you put 9 years of your heart and soul into something, and you have to say, this isn't working. This is a wonderful idea, and somebody, I'm sure, can do this, but I can't, and I need to kind of pivot, and I need to kind of do something else, and that's a really hard thing to do, and I think hours and hours on your own, down in the room, down in the basement, with good music in the background, certainly allowed some of that thought to germinate.
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually really relate to that. When I used to work for Alstom in my day job, and we were bought out by GE, General Electric.
Oh, yeah.
In 2015, and I was actually in a project management role. I'd been there for like 8 years, and that big change, I still stayed in the project management team, but I was the only person from Alstom in the team. And it was great because I was the expert in a sense from that. I also brought a PM tool that we built, and I was the expert for that too. And I like this, sorry. We did that, we did that for about a year, where I was in that team and we worked. I was the expert, etc. We ran things, we run training and so on. But I got to the point where I thought, you know what? I like being the expert. I like knowing everything, but it's time to change. I've done it for 8 years. I did it through different changes in the business. You do feel like, that thing, and it's your comfort place, but it's not always the best thing to stay at. And so, yeah, I'm the same as you. If you read through my job history, there's a few points where there's quite a long period, and then it's a few years at a time. And I think that's a lot more refreshing. People say that it's a good thing to do, but not often that people actually do it. So it's great to hear that you had the same experience in the end.
Yeah, inflections are important. Anytime in any journey, you have to make turns and you have to make inflections. And you're right. I mean, very similar. If you look through my job history, there's been, this is and it's hard to say this is an inflection, because this is more of a course correction, to use a nautical term. But there have been really 3 major inflection points, and I guess I'm underselling this. This is really the 4th, because it got me to where I wanted to be, and at the end, that was what it was about. It was this inflection was about realizing and understanding that the inflection I had made was not going to get me to the goal, and realizing uh, to use a business term, the sunk costs of the 9 years I had invested, they were sunk costs. And the more I was going to continue to invest in that was not going to get me where I needed to go. And so I needed to make that adjustment. I needed to say, no, as challenging as this is, and a lot of people would say it's crazy to leave the job that you have, to be essentially the face and the outward visibility of the company, and to go to work for a company that's based out of Israel, and now I'm working for a company I've never visited and a boss I've never met except by Zoom. It's a significant risk, but you have to make those risks in life. You have to be willing to do that.
You do, absolutely do. So your inflection was more based on you being happy and you being more whole and true to yourself again. And do you think that for all of your career is, similar to mine, you've done degrees, you've had different jobs and stuff, and you've always been in the corporate world. Was it something that you think it felt more like a gravy train, that you were just on it and you were chasing after it, and the success was feeding that need to move on and become bigger and better?
Yeah, definitely. So definitely, I think when I got my first job as a ship inspector, I had dreams of running that company, and you start off at 22, or and you're just full of energy, and I've always been in a situation, or I've always felt like I'm good when I'm leading people, and that's a skill set that I have. But it's been a tricky road for me to get to that, and I haven't always understood why that's been a tricky road. So, as I've gone through with different companies, the first the inspection company, being a ship inspector, and they just ran into a lot of roadblocks, and I did that job for about 15 years, and just realized I was never going to get to. There were the people around me had been promoted, and the positions were filling, and I was not getting that. And so I had to choose to leave, and that was an easy move for me, because it didn't, it was moving to a very comfortable situation, and I moved from being a ship inspector to running ships, a lot more responsibility, and it was seen as moving up the ladder, and that was great. But the shipping industry is what it is. We had been moved 3 times with that company, and we're looking at a 4th move, and we wanted to center around family. And so I found this, 3rd inflection to this equipment company, where I could really step in and be leader there. And they were very, very restrictive of my ability to lead. And I thought, well, that's okay. I'll just get there and it'll be okay. And I'll teach them, and I'll manage that. And that's where I went wrong, right? They put me in my little hole and said, okay, do that. And, be really good at this one little thing. And I was like, yeah, but I want to lead. I felt like a Monty Python skit. I want to be a leader. Yeah, okay, go sit down over there. Have fun. Make your little product and be nice. And that was where the friction was created. And so now with this new job, that was the biggest thing, was, okay, what, am I going to be able to have that opportunity to lead and create teams and be able to inspire teams to greatness? And when that, and recognizing that was the mistake that was the mistake I had made, was not being true to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I mean, in the sense that I've done the same thing. I've taken a job, thought, no, it'll be okay, or it will work out, or I can try and do something later on, and it doesn't work. So I agree with you that maybe you've got to go in with your eyes wide open and be realistic with yourself. I think one of the things that strikes me as about my current day job is that I've actually, in the last couple of years, we started to take on different initiatives at work. And so there was a health initiative, there's STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. So I'm big on that. I lead that for my whole campus now. And it's similar to you, that I know in my day job I'm never going to be able to lead a team of people. I can lead projects and deliver projects, but I can't lead a team because that's not what my job entails. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we've got this extra piece, where we can volunteer. So
Mm-hmm.
you volunteer too, you get something
Yep.
back from that, but also you get to play in a safe environment with those skills. And it's so much, in fact, it feels more rewarding to do it as a
Mm-hmm.
volunteer because everybody's there with the same, the heart. You're not paying them; they're there with their passion rather than their money.
Right.
It is a lot more rewarding, I think, than leading a team at work. So that's one way that people can express other skills without actually having to have it in their day job, if that's possible at their workplace.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important. It's really important to find those passions outside if you can't find them inside, and that's certainly what I did, as well, and going at my daughter's school and with the Boy Scouts and with local community groups and really wanted to lean into those opportunities, and they were also, I think, validating towards my personal vision for myself. If I walk into a volunteer, like as you say, at a volunteer organization, nobody's being paid. There's only egos and passions that are fueled. And so in general, people go to what they're passionate about. And as I was involved in those things and rose to the top and rose to leadership positions, and people looked at me as a leader, I said, okay, I'm not wrong. I'm not it's not that I'm not good at leading, it's that this organization is not going to give that to me. And so it's time to assess that, and it's time to make a change, if that's what's going to happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you made the right choice. You seem
Yeah.
really happy, like you said, a lot calmer. And some of the
Yes.
things you read now, since those days, it's a different person that's written them. So it's really great to see. I
Yeah.
appreciate that story. I think a lot of people, you likened it in your post or article, sorry, about hitting the reset button on a game
Hmm.
where you could do that. And I think it's not necessarily just a job you could do that with. You can do it with a lot
No.
of other elements in your life as well. So it's a really good lesson to learn. And it's I think from my perspective, if people can recognize that point that they need to do it a lot earlier, the better, because then they're still able to make that change a lot more healthy and you don't suffer for so much longer.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's we get one trip, right? And so, you
Absolutely.
know, and I think we have to understand that's where our that we when we're not ourselves to everyone, and there's no reason to not be your best self to the people around you. I mean, that's, and you can, there's whole other blog posts on that sort of topics, and you can almost walk through my evolution as you read those things. But that's a real, that's the one of the biggest life lessons, I think, that we don't capture, is it's not that you have a right to be happy. I don't think everyone has a right to be happy, because I think that's a challenging term, and there's so much that you have to unpack in that word.
Mm.
But I think you have an obligation to yourself to be satisfied. And
Yes.
for some people, that satisfaction comes from volunteering, and a day job is just something to keep a roof over my head and four wheels under my feet and food in my mouth. And that's okay as long as you're satisfied. But recognize where your sunk costs are on that job. For other people, it's the job, and for other people, it's their families and how they raise their kids and who their children are. And for others, it's their religion, and they find that satisfaction through church and through community that way. But if you don't have that, you have to find an area of your life to reset, because it's not worth not doing it. And the problem is, as I've found out, is that not doing it bleeds into the other areas, and then suddenly you're not as good in your volunteering, and you're not as good at home and in your family, and you're not as involved in your church, and you're resentful of things that you're doing there. And It's find that dissatisfaction part and then reset that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And so, would you, if you gave some advice to other people, is it a case of noticing the people around you and the things around you as maybe indicators, or what would you say to somebody that might not even realize they need to reset?
The biggest piece of advice I would ever give anyone is seek out loving feedback and accept it for what it is. The real challenge in life is that we look at ourselves in the mirror, and I think we all recognize that what we see is not what anyone else sees, and what everyone else sees is not what we see. And as I, you know, if I'm ever caught in the picture, and and someone takes a picture from behind me, and I go, "Oh, what's that bald spot back there? Oh my gosh, what's going on with my head?" Like, everyone else sees that. I don't see that. And I think the same is true with most parts of our life. And if you have a true friend, try to build a relationship that allows them to say, "You're being kind of a bad person today. What's the matter with you?"
Yeah.
And when they say that, don't say, "What do you mean I'm being a bad person?" Accept it and say, "Yeah," or "What do you mean by that? Because I'd really not like to not be a bad person." And I think if we all just accepted that feedback and took it from a place of honesty, I think that we would find those areas a lot faster. So that would be the primary advice I would give is seek that out. And also, and to seek that out, remember that you have to give it, that you have to be willing to provide it. And you have to be willing to lovingly say to someone, "You're having a rough day today." Or you have to say to someone, "I don't know if this job is for you. I don't know if you're doing the right thing here." And that's a big thing that I do a lot. I find myself doing a lot is counseling, just being a voice for people to talk to, and being approachable in that way. And if you are foot forward that way, people will be foot forward that way to you as well.
Yeah, I found that myself. I think if you are in a position where you're looking to change jobs as well, there's a lot of people out there that you may have actually given feedback to already that are more willing to give feedback the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. So LinkedIn's great for that. You can get recommendations and things. You can get a good vibe as to what kind of skills people think you've got by looking at the ones they've marked you high on. And then maybe know, oh, I did work with that person on business improvement, so that's why they've ticked that, and so on. But it's good. You can collect that kind of stuff almost organically. And then, like you say, if you're more willing to share with other people how you think about what they're behaving like, or just be able to have that sense about you to touch somebody on the shoulder and say, "Are you okay today?" There's a lot about that, and even more so with COVID. We don't see each other anymore, so I can be making a point of every day trying to think of somebody I haven't heard from for a while and say, "Oh, how are you?" and just touch base, even if it's just "I'm great, okay, good," and that's it.
Yeah.
But it's just so much work, and I think that's a lot of it's less effort to just text somebody, but it really does make a difference to some people. They go, "Oh, thanks for saying hello." So I totally see the fact that you can have that two-way conversation, and I think you're right. You do have to have some people that are in your network or your tribe, as I was talking about last night on LinkedIn, that you have the people that will be honest with you and aren't afraid to be honest with you, and likewise you do the same back.
No, absolutely. And you have to do that personally. You can't do that exclusively through social media, through the Facebooks and Instagrams. It's a nice way to let your world know what you're doing, but that's not connection. And so that's Absolutely. Super important. You're right. I mean, it's even just a gentle text. "How's your morning? Got any plans this weekend?" Someone knows that someone out there knows I'm alive and cares what I'm doing. And that's super important.
Absolutely. I totally agree. It's been really great to talk to you, Mark.
Yeah.
I've got one question for you at the end. Bit of a random one. My theme, like a lot of my themes in my coaching programs and so on, is about superheroes. That everybody deserves to feel like a superhero. We've all got
Absolutely.
superpowers, and so I'd like to ask you, who is your hero and why?
Wow. Uh, it's a great question. And I'm going to tell you, it's funny because I wrote an entire book on that. That
Wow.
exact question was who is my hero? And it was because I felt like that was a foundational question. And I felt like that was a question that was really important. And and I didn't come up with a really good answer. I really didn't. I think my personal hero, the person I like to emulate most, is Steve Jobs. I'm a huge Steve Jobs fan, and when I say that, I recognize his faults as well as his capabilities. But the thing about Steve that I find heroic is that he had clear vision and belief in self and just didn't care and just said, "This is who I am. This is what I do. I'm going to do that." And and that's one of the things I really try to emulate. Is he is I am who I am. I have clear vision. You can get on the train or not. I'm okay. I'm not overly concerned. And the post that I'm about to put out relates very much to that topic. So yeah, not much of a superhero as far as a cape and superpowers, but I really, he's really the person that I spend a lot of time sort of thinking about and emulating. Yeah, that was one of the three books that I always had on my shelf at my work, and that that I felt like I wanted to when people looked at that, they said, "Oh, the Isaacson biography," I just love his singularness, his singularity. So that's
Brilliant.
he is my superhero, and he's the reason. And that's yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic hero to have, and for exactly the right reason. For me personally, too, it's taken me till 40 plus years to decide I am also going to be happy in my own skin and accept me for who I am, what I can do and what I can't do. And it's quite liberating. It's
Mhm.
quite a feeling of, the great big weights off your shoulder. You don't have to chase the job or the title or the name, letters after your name or anything like that. You can just be happy with what you've got and explore other things to complement it. So I think that's just a fantastic way to end our discussion. I'm really pleased that you've been able to spend the time with me, and honoured that we've had such a long time together.
Yeah.
Really, really thankful to you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Lisa. I'm glad you reached out, and if I can ever assist you again, please feel free to reach out.
Likewise, in absolutely opposite direction.
All right.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Have a great, well, it's Friday for you, so have a great weekend.
Yes, you too. You're nearly there yourself.
Yep. Just about 7 more hours.
Bless you. I better get to it then.
All right. Talk
Thanks
to
a
you
lot,
later.
Mark. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.